There is something wrong with the birds. You can't quite name what it is, but as you walk down the Via dell'Abbondanza, on this August morning with a bowl of warm wine in your hands, you notice that the sky above Pompeii is quiet in a way it never is. No sparrows, no doves, no sound of wings anywhere. The dogs in the alleys have their fur standing on end, all sniffing the air in the same direction, all facing north, as if they know something that 20,000 human beings have not yet figured out. The ground is too warm for an ordinary morning, and every now and then, for just a fraction of a second, you could swear the earth is breathing lightly beneath your feet. But the street is full, the market is open, and Pompeii does what Pompeii always does, ignores the signs, and keeps moving. You look at Vesuvius. It is there as it has always been, wide and silent on the horizon, with that thin thread of smoke rising from the summit that nobody notices anymore because it has always been this way. 20,000 people are breathing in this city at this exact moment, and not one of them knows they have less than 12 hours left to live. Then the ground rises and falls beneath your feet as if it were liquid. You grab the nearest wall and feel the stone vibrating between your fingers like a guitar string, and when you look north, your brain takes a full second to process what your eyes are sending back, because there is no reference anywhere in the world you know for what is happening out there. A column of fire, rock, and black smoke tearing through the sky with a violence that makes your stomach drop. The woman beside you lets go of everything she is carrying. A man on the corner falls to his knees. A child stops in the middle of the street and does not cry, only stares, because even crying needs a moment to understand what it is looking at. It is 11 in the morning on August 24th, 79 AD, and Pompeii has just begun to die. You walk back through the internal stairs of the house and into the atrium, that central space open to the sky that the Romans called the impluvium, where a marble basin collects rainwater. The morning light falls straight down in there, and the walls around it are covered in colorful frescoes, scenes of banquets, gods, impossible gardens. Pompeii is this, a city that loves beauty, with the same intensity it loves wine and business. You step out through the front door, and the street receives you with all its organized chaos. The Via dell'Abbondanza, the main artery of the city, is already teeming with life. You walk over the black basalt stones, stepping around the granite blocks that serve as crossings for pedestrians to get across the street, without stepping in the mud and debris that runs down the center. The houses lean against each other, shared walls, wooden windows thrown open to the growing heat. On every corner there is a thermopolium, those stone counters with large ceramic pots set into the surface, where the cook serves warm wine, soups, lentils slow-cooked with herbs, and pieces of toasted bread soaked in olive oil. The mixed smell of garlic, salted fish, charcoal smoke, and human sweat fills every inch of air you breathe. It is intense, it is real, it is completely Pompeii. You stop at one of those counters and ask for a bowl of wine diluted with water, as is the custom. The man behind the counter is broad-shouldered, wearing a dirty apron, his arms covered in burn scars. He serves you without taking his eyes off the pan where he is grilling pieces of goat meat. Beside him, a young dark-haired slave girl braids onions into long ropes hanging from the wall. You drink slowly, watching the street. A heavy cart passes loaded with amphorae of olive oil from some nearby port, and the driver curses the pedestrians who do not move fast enough. Two men argue heatedly at the door of a bakery about the price of wheat. A child chases a goose that escaped from a cage. Pompeii has something eternal about its movement, as if that energy could never be interrupted. And you, walking through it, feel exactly that. The sensation of a city that believes deeply in its own immortality. But somewhere around mid-morning, something changes. You are near the Forum when you feel the first tremor. It is light, almost imperceptible, just a shudder in the ground under your feet, like a very heavy cart passing nearby. But there is no cart. You look around and see that some people have paused what they were doing, lifted their eyes, exchanged quick glances. It is not the first time the earth has shaken in Pompeii, not even close. 17 years ago, in 62 AD, a violent earthquake destroyed a large part of the city, and since then smaller tremors have been as common as spring rain. The people here have learned to live with the restless ground, so the shudder passes and life resumes its rhythm, and you keep going. But Vesuvius does not resume its silence. It is close to noon when it happens. You are in one of the alleyways near the theater when you hear, before you see anything, a sound that has no comparison to anything you have ever heard in your life. A deep and continuous roar that seems to come from inside the earth itself, as if the entire world were tearing open beneath your feet. The ground vibrates differently now. It is not a light shudder. It is a tremor that rises through the soles of your feet, moves up through your legs, reaches your chest, and makes your teeth rattle, and then you look north. Vesuvius has erupted. A column of dark and light gray smoke is rising from the summit at a speed that seems impossible, expanding upward and outward at the same time, like a gigantic tree of smoke and pulverized rock being pushed toward the sky by an invisible and furious force. The Romans would describe this shape centuries later, through the eyes of the writer Pliny the Younger, as a cloud resembling a pine tree, with that thin vertical trunk and the canopy opening out in every direction. But you are not thinking about pine trees right now, you are thinking about running. The street around you collapses into disorder in a matter of seconds. People who were sitting and talking are now on their feet, pointing at the volcano, screaming, calling out the names of family members. A woman runs with 2 small children in her arms, one on each hip, her loose hair whipping in the wind that has suddenly turned hot. Far too hot. An elderly man falls in the middle of the street and nobody stops to help him because the survival instinct moves faster than compassion in a moment like this. Horses tied up outside a tavern go mad with fear, snap their ropes and charge down the street, spreading the chaos even further. You run. The streets of Pompeii, which felt so familiar and full of life just minutes ago, now feel like a hostile maze. The stones under your feet are vibrating unevenly, and at some corners you see cracks opening in the walls of the houses, thin as hair at first, then wide enough to fit a hand inside. A stone cornice falls from a building to your left and explodes on the ground less than 2 meters from you, and you feel the pieces of limestone flying against your legs. The dust is already in the air. That fine white powder the volcano is spewing upward and which is beginning to fall back down, slowly at first like strange gray snow. During the first hours after the eruption, the greatest danger is not fire. It is the rain of pumice stone, those fragments of light and porous volcanic rock that Vesuvius hurls into the sky and which begin to fall over the city like infernal hail. Each piece is the size of a walnut, sometimes larger, and they fall with enough force to hurt, to knock you down, to kill you if you are unlucky. The people who had enough presence of mind grabbed cushions, pillows, baskets, anything that could protect their heads, and you do the same, pulling a thick piece of cloth from a clothesline outside an abandoned house you pass. The sky above Pompeii is disappearing. It has not turned to night, it is only late afternoon, but the cloud of ash and pulverized rock expanding in every direction from Vesuvius is swallowing the sunlight, transforming the golden afternoon into a greenish-gray twilight, and then into an almost total darkness. Torches and oil lamps that people carry in their hands flicker in the middle of the dust that never stops falling. And the scene has something of a bad dream about it, of a nightmare that does not obey the laws of the real world. There are those who flee, and there are those who stay. Some residents of Pompeii, perhaps a third of them, made the decision to evacuate in the first hours after the eruption, when there was still enough visibility to walk the roads and the pumice rain was manageable with adequate protection. Those were the ones who survived. But many others stayed, and the reasons are so deeply human that it hurts to understand. Some stayed to protect the house, to guard their belongings, their jewels, the money hidden under the floor. Some stayed because they had elderly or sick relatives who could not walk fast. Some stayed simply because they did not believe it would be this serious, because Vesuvius had always stopped before, because Pompeii had always survived before. And some stayed because they were afraid that what was outside might be worse than what was in here. You think about all of them as you move through the streets covered in a growing layer of white pumice. The ground is already buried under nearly 30 centimeters of the material, and walking through it is like walking on a beach of coarse sand. Every step sinks, every step demands effort. The rooftops of the lower houses are beginning to give way under the accumulated weight, and in the distance you hear the crash of those that have already collapsed, followed by screams that last 1 second and then last no more. The smell has changed. At the start of the morning it was bread and garlic and life. Now it is sulfur, that unmistakable rotten egg smell that Vesuvius exhales along with its gases, penetrating and nauseating, making your eyes water and your throat burn. You cover your face with the cloth you carry, but it does not help much. The smell gets through the cloth, the dust gets through the cloth, and your lungs work twice as hard to find clean air where there is none. In the houses you pass, you see through the open doors the final scenes of some lives. A family gathered in the main room, the father holding his wife and children in a position that is not one of rest, but of waiting, of praying for it to pass. A child alone in a corridor holding a dog that barks at the ceiling as if the ceiling were the enemy. An old man lying on a bed with his arms crossed over his chest, with an expression on his face that is not exactly fear, it is more like resignation, like someone who has lived long enough to know when something is ending. The eruption of Vesuvius in 79 AD lasts nearly 24 hours in total, but the final moments for Pompeii arrive abruptly and without mercy. After hours of pumice and ash fall, Vesuvius produces something far more deadly: pyroclastic surges. These are waves of superheated gas, ash, and rock fragments that race down the slopes of the volcano at hundreds of kilometers per hour, with temperatures reaching 300 degrees Celsius, capable of killing any living being in seconds through asphyxiation, internal burns, or the sheer force of impact. There is no outrunning a pyroclastic surge. There is nowhere to hide. There is no door thick enough to stop it. When the first surge reaches Pompeii, the city dies all at once. It is not a slow death. It is the instantaneous erasure of an entire world, as if someone had flipped a switch. The people in the streets, in the houses, in the taverns, in the temples, in the theater, in the gymnasium, in the forum, all of them stopped at the exact moment the surge arrived, and the heat and the lack of air made their bodies lock into that position, that gesture, that expression, and then came the ash, covering everything, filling every space, every crack, every corner, building over the dead and over the city a cocoon of volcanic rock that would last nearly 2,000 years. This is how Pompeii disappears from the world of the living, not with a great cry, but with a sudden and total silence, under meters of ash that the wind slowly flattens across the centuries, until the surface is smooth and Vesuvius goes quiet again, and the generations that follow gradually forget that beneath that field there was a city. There were markets and theaters and frescoes and houses full of conversations and arguments and laughter and love and everything else that makes a human life worth something. In 1748, workers digging to build a nearby palace find the first stones of Pompeii, and when archaeologists begin carefully removing the layers of hardened ash, they discover something nobody expected. Not just ruins, but an entire city preserved at the exact instant of its death, with the paintings on the walls still vivid, with the graffiti of lovers still legible on the walls, with the carbonized loaves still in the bakery oven, with the wheel rut still pressed into the stone of the road, with the bones of those who stayed still there, where they stayed, as they stayed, and they find the voids. Where a body once was, the ash hardened around it like a mold, and when the body decomposed over the centuries, it left behind only the exact shape of its form. Archaeologists learned to inject plaster into these voids, and what comes out is something both disturbing and beautiful: the exact shape of real people, in the real position in which they died, with real expressions on their faces. A woman embracing another, a man with his hands over his face, a dog curled in on itself. They are the most honest cast history has ever made of human beings. Pompeii today receives more than 2 million visitors a year, and every single one of them walks over the same stones you walked on that August morning, passes down the same Via dell'Abbondanza, sees the same frescoes, reads the same graffiti. There is one on a wall near the Forum that reads simply in Latin, Admirer o paries te non cesi dice ruinis qui tot scriptorum taedia sustineas, which translates to something like, I am amazed, O wall, that you have not collapsed in ruins, having to bear the weight of so many boring writers. Someone scratched that into the stone with a metal point nearly 2,000 years ago, probably laughing while they did it. That is Pompeii, a city that died in 18 hours and refuses to stop talking. And you Who woke up that morning to a quiet sky and restless dogs and a ground breathing slowly beneath your feet? Who drank diluted wine at a stone counter without knowing it was the last morning of an entire city? You understand now what it means for a city to be alive, what it means for it to stop being alive, and what it means, against all the odds of time, to simply refuse to die. If this story moved something in you, if for even a few minutes you felt the stones of Pompeii under your feet and the ash in your lungs, consider subscribing to the channel. Every week we step inside a different moment in history and live it from the inside out. And if you want more people to experience this, leaving a like takes 2 seconds and makes a real difference in getting these stories to those who would love them. See you in the next one.